Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. Your host Isaiah, you guys see all my notes. If you were to look at these notes, you'd see they're like little reminders because I think for me, my brain is full of so much information, so many things to do. And I don't know about you guys, but I think this is a cool little icebreaker to ask yourself. How do you process information? How do you need to retain information, right? How do you go about conveying information? It's funny, as I know for me, even though I spend a lot of time, with technology and things of that nature, I'm still pretty traditional in a sense of like, I have to write things down. I have to physically write things down. Even when I journal. So when I do gratitudes, I do them on my phone. But when I'm journaling, I physically have to write. It's just something about that process that I really love. And I notice for myself when I am out of my rhythm, it's because I haven't been writing, physically writing. And as a writer, I spend a lot of time in front of a computer, but when it comes to really getting things down or ingrained, sometimes I just need to write a list. So that's what all these posts are. You got, little quotes, you got a to-do list, you got some important things, but overall, it's kind of where my brain lives. And I think it allows me to remember things so they don't drift. And that's what today's episode is about, actually, is like drifting. But when it comes to our interpersonal relationships, if there's one thing I've seen a lot is how we kind of talk about when relationships drift, especially friendships. There's this kind of we almost romanticize the drift, and it almost allows us to feel comfortable with not trying. And the funny thing is about friendship, and this is why I think friendship definitely needs to have more of a standard, because a lot of times when the conversation of drifting apart comes up, we say, yeah, friends just grow apart. That's just what happens in life. And it's like, a lot of times friendships don't grow apart. They aren't just prioritizing part of our growth, right? Our future planning, our future development, right? Ask yourself, how often have you been willing to budget for a close friend financially, right? How often have you considered moving geographically for a friendship? How often have you considered, hey, my profession is going to require me to be busy or whatever, so how am I going to integrate making sure I stay connected to my friendships, right? Most people don't think about that, okay? But ask a person, how much work have they put into planning for a romantic partner, right? How many books have they read? How many videos have they read about what the ideal partner looks like? What do you have to be to get the attention of a romantic interest? A romantic interest, not even the actual partner, right? People plan so often for relationships that don't even exist yet and overlook the relationships that do, especially when it comes to friendship. And I think we are very passive about what defines friendship, which is why there's such this toss-up and very passive, very flippant way of going about, oh yeah, friends just drift. And we can kind of sit in our own sorrows versus actually admitting, how did I prioritize this relationship? How did I prioritize this friendship? Did I do that? Or was it one of those things that because it wasn't convenient, because it wasn't a romantic partner, because it wasn't novelty attached to it, because it wasn't social currency attached to it, this friendship didn't really mean much unless it was in front of me, unless it was convenient, unless it made me feel good. I didn't plan for this person to be a part of my future anyway, so now that they're not, I just grieve it. right? Versus me actually taking an honest look at, hey, did it drift because there was no discipline put into keeping it close? And that's what we have to be honest with ourselves about. How much emphasis do we actually put into sustaining our platonic relationships, right? And most people will do this thing of putting shields in front of as to why they can't. Well, I got to work, or, you have kids, or you have a husband, you have a wife, you got to work, you have kids, you have a husband or a wife, or before you even have children, oh, this is your boyfriend, this is your girlfriend, this is your partner. So by design, they take the most importance. Says who? Is that a biological thing that happens, or is that an active choice we make? Because when that relationship fails, or if it fails, the first people we go back to and seek support from are the same people we don't prioritize, which lets us know is not a biological change per se. Like, yeah, you may be stimulated and infatuated with this person, so now all your focus goes to them. Yes, it might be an attachment thing, it might be a codependency thing, but is it really something that happens that now says this stranger who I don't know from a can of paint now takes priority over people I've known for so long, the people who have been a part of my growth? And I've made this stranger important biologically because that's just what happens, right? I had no choice in the matter. This person just became the most important person to me. No, right? One of the things I realized is we put our friendships to a test that we don't require other relationships to go through. We require our friendships to survive on neglect and assumption, but we would never do that to our partnership. We wouldn't say, yeah, we should be able to go 6 months or years without talking to each other and still be cool. We wouldn't dare test a romantic partner that way, right? We wouldn't say, oh yeah, I should be able to not show up for work for 6 months and still get paid. We wouldn't dare test our job, right? When it comes to children, if we have them, we wouldn't dare make our kids question whether or not we care about them, right? We're present, we're consistent too. And we build and we prioritize. But when it comes to friendship, there's this thing that people kind of say that sounds like you should be able to survive neglect. That's the determination of a good friend, the ability to survive neglect. And that's not true. First of all, we need to get better at who we choose as friends. We also need to be more honest about what kind of friend we are, because a lot of people are not the friend that they think they are, right? And they avoid being that by avoiding hard conversations. They avoid the truth about their value system. They avoid actually prioritizing people. A lot of friendships drift because people are not willing to have an uncomfortable conversation. Hey, I noticed that we've been drifting. Can we talk about that? Or how are you feeling about this connection? Or maybe there was a misconception or assumption that was never really talked about. And also this thing I've been seeing lately with men in terms of what they define as brotherhood is like, there'll be a video posted and somebody's like, hey, I know we don't talk anymore, or I know we don't talk all the time, but if you needed me, I'd be there. Friendships need you to be there all the time, not in this heroic way, not in a virtuous way, not in a performative way. Be there. What does it look like to actually consider a person on a day-to-day basis? And there's the whole, yeah, we don't have to talk all the time to be friends. Yeah, but we shouldn't go too much time without checking in and supporting each other and still call that friendship, right? Why is friendship the only relationship that is worthy of neglect, right? That's the only relationship we think is supposed to happen just because, and that's not it, right? Truth be told, a lot of people are so fearful of being vulnerable, so fearful of making an active choice, or just don't care to. And it sounds nice, right? We get the applause, or we get the support or attention from people on social media when we post videos like this because it seems so endearing or so honoring of the relationship. But like, oh yeah, you must really care about this person. But it's like, if you care about them, why have you let so much time pass? What was really happening in your life that this one person was the sacrificial, but everything else you were able to sustain? Why? Right? And I think the more honest we can get about why we don't prioritize certain things in people over other, the more honest our relationships will actually be. Because it doesn't just happen, right? These things don't just happen. We kind of allow it to be, all right? And tomorrow is always going to be a tomorrow. So if we keep putting people off, we have to understand that being on a receptive end of neglect, eventually you wise up and you're like, hey, I don't want to be here. And people don't owe us a level of friendship that we are not providing, nor that we value. And I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting that too. They think, well, you should know that I have a busy life. And it's like, well, when you continually tell somebody that you don't have time for them, they get to make adjustments. They get to adjust the time that they were making for you too, right? And they also get to recognize, hey, am I a priority to you? And we need to understand that love, right, as a structure is very different than value. There are a lot of people who may love you. You may love a lot of people, but do you actually value them? Because to value something means you take care of it. You honor it, right? You do protect it. So we could say we love people, right? We could say we have love for people, but how do you take care of them, especially when it's not convenient? And the reason why some people are so eager to post on social media and get the accolades and get the attention and get the love is because it's not a relationship that they have to really be responsible for. It's a one-way street, right? I get the likes, I get the attention, I get those dopamine hits, but I don't owe these people relationship. I don't even know these people, but I can extract from them. But in our interpersonal relationships, a lot of times we fail to realize that the people who we want to take care of us in our personal lives also deserve to be taken care of. And we can play semantics as much as we absolutely want, but truth of the matter is, your relationships will always show the truth of how you value them. Always. And there's no getting away from us. No matter how much we try to avoid other people, we can never avoid our truth. And our truth shows up everywhere. So it's important to ask yourself, if you do have relationships that are drifting, what's stopping you from reaching out and having a hard conversation and be like, hey, actually, this relationship matters and I don't want to lose it. Can we talk? And if we do value this relationship, how are we going to take care of it? Maybe we don't, right? Maybe we don't. That's the thing. You cannot control somebody's value system. Think about the things that you value in life and ask yourself why. Where is it derived from? Is it family traditions? Is it societal projections, right? Is it your own ideals? What does it require for you to actually have movement when it comes to people, places, or things? And as we get older, yes, our time gets more divided because of the choices that we are making. So friendship is not something that is passive. And a lot of times adults talk about adult friendships, but they are not handling it in an adult way. Actually, they avoid it, right? Our relational practices can be very immature because actually sit with the discomfort of a truth to hear how somebody is experiencing you and accepting your truth about the whole narrative is very uncomfortable. And then it's your willingness to change. How much effort are you willing to put into being inconvenienced? Because change in itself is a very inconvenient practice. Consideration of other people is a very inconvenient practice. And most times what's missing from interpersonal relationships is the consideration of another person and how they are willing to show up and keep us in their lives. Friendship is a two-way street and it is a practice. It doesn't just happen. And a lot of people feel entitled to it being that way, which is why we hear a lot of pushback around what friendship is and what it should look like. But no relationship survives neglect. And priorities are organized choices. And you never have to remind somebody of what's important to them. And friendship is an important relationship because it is dealing with another person. But not every person that you come across is worthy of friendship. So ask yourself, are there connections in your life that have been drifting? Have you been a drifter? And be honest, why? It didn't just happen. What was actually taking place? And if you can be honest with yourself, the more honest your relationships will look. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.